Before we begin, if you love stories about humanity's hidden power and the creatures that stand beside us, make sure to like this video, comment your thoughts on humanity's greatest predator allies, and subscribe for more HFY stories every week. Your support keeps these tales alive. He walked alone into the chamber of the Galactic Council, his boots echoing against polished black marble veined with glowing silver. Eyes followed him with the same mixture of disdain and caution a person might give a wild animal chained at a zoo. His uniform was dark, matte and perfectly pressed, adorned only with a single emblem at the collar, a stylized claw gripping a five-pointed star. General Marcus Hale had spent 20 years representing Earth in the council chambers. In that time he had been called savage, barbarian, even vermin with vocal cords. Today the murmurs carried the same words, delivered in a dozen languages through scent glands, tonal clicks, ultraviolet flickers and rippling scales. But Marcus walked forward, head high, scanning the tiers of alien dignitaries arrayed in a crescent around the floor's central dais. To them he was alone. To him he had never been more surrounded by kin. At the dais stood Councillor Vrixen of the Ursathi Dominion, a creature of towering bulk covered in silver-tipped brown fur, with eyes like polished jet beads sunk deep in a broad, flat skull. His ceremonial robe, woven from the platinum threads of his homeworld's sky silk worms, glittered under the luminous council emblems. When Vrixen spoke, his deep voice carried both amusement and scorn. "Human general," he rumbled, "again you appear before us. What is it this time? Another desperate plea to elevate your pet animals to sapient ally status? Another childish request to call your native vermin warriors?" Chuckles rolled around the chamber. A Celiaran delegate, her translucent blue membranes vibrating to produce speech, added in her song-like timbre, "Perhaps he brings a circus for our entertainment. It is, after all, what Deathworlders do to their predators, cage them, parade them, break them." Marcus inhaled once, slowly. He let the exhale cool his tongue before speaking. His voice cut through the derision with the precision of a blade honed on unyielding stone. "I come to present formal petition under Council Law Article 773 subsection 12, Rights of Non-Sapient Uplifted Allies. I submit that classification of non-sapient is inaccurate regarding Earth's apex predators. I submit evidence of sapience, coordinated tactics, strategic understanding, and capacity for cultural inheritance. Today, I come with a final demonstration of these truths." Vrixen made a dismissive snort, flicking an ear as if brushing off an insect. "Your wolves and felines are instinct-driven meat machines. Your bears are lumbering engines of bloodlust. They may obey you but they cannot join us at this table. This council is for those who rise above the gnawing hungers of the flesh." For a brief moment, Marcus's gaze darkened, and a flicker of pain crossed his features, replaced immediately by resolve. He remembered cold winter nights in Siberia, where great gray wolves pressed their flanks against his tent to block the screaming winds. He remembered snow leopards in the Karakoram crouched beside him, eyes scanning moonlit ridgelines for enemy patrols. He remembered the trembling heartbeat of a dying Kodiak bear as he knelt, whispering apologies for arriving too late to save it from poachers' chemical burns, and its eyes staring into his, unblinking, as if seeing beyond the thin skin of his soul. "These meat machines," Marcus said evenly, "chose to follow humanity. Not because we caged them but because we freed them. Because we offered them the same thing humans once offered each other, a place to stand together against extinction." An audible shift rippled through the chamber. The Galactic delegate, whose crystalline body refracted the council's glow into fractured rainbow flares, clicked his mandibles irritably. "You romanticize brutes. You think them noble. They are dangerous. Unpredictable." Marcus inclined his head slightly. "So are we. That is precisely why you fear them and why you fear us. Because you know that when danger and unpredictability become loyalty and purpose, you stand before a force no calculation can fully predict. Or control." From the Ursathi came a low growl that reverberated deep in his broad chest. "Enough of this poetic nonsense. Have you come to threaten us, General? Have you come to claim your savage pets as equal to those of us who have built worlds and sung the mathematics of creation into orbit?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead he turned, scanning the assembled faces, ignoring the sneers, ignoring the bored twitches of appendages, ignoring the predator-prey tension thrumming across the chamber's emotional field. He thought of the first time he saw a wolf pup approach a dying soldier on a battlefield, curling up against his chest to keep him warm until medics arrived. He thought of the snow lioness that slept with a crying orphan in an abandoned Himalayan village until rescue teams found them. He thought of the ancient polar bear matriarchs who stood silent vigil beside research scientists as auroras raged overhead. Finally he spoke, his words carrying a quiet steel that silenced the remaining murmurs. I have not come to threaten. I have come to witness. You mock me because you do not understand what Earth is. You think it is a death world because of its gravity, its poisons, its storms, its rift valleys and volatile plates. You are wrong. He took a single step forward, his boots clicking against the obsidian floor. Earth is a death world because life there has never stopped fighting to rise, to grow teeth sharper, to run faster, to think deeper, to love more fiercely, to protect more completely. You think you are laughing at a man who keeps animals. What you are truly doing is laughing at the ones who chose to follow me here. Silence spread across the council. Even Vrixen, who towered above him, narrowed his eyes in contemplation. Marcus's gaze was unflinching, his breathing steady, his heartbeat calm despite the sudden tension that made even the stone columns seem to tremble slightly. I ask you now, Marcus said softly, are you ready to see the ones you call vermin? The Celiran delegate shifted uneasily on her stalk-like legs. This is absurd. What will you do, parade them through our halls? Let them snarl and drool on the crystal tiles? This council is not a hunting ground. Marcus allowed a thin smile to touch his lips, the kind of smile that might appear on the face of an ancient warrior about to reveal the hidden blade. No, he said. They will not snarl. They will stand. They will walk beside me. And you will see them for who they truly are. There was movement near the chamber entrance. Low, rhythmic thuds reached their ears, vibrating through the soles of alien feet, paws, talons, hooves and root fingers. Delegates turned, flicking tongues, antennae and ultrasonic feelers, trying to identify the approaching vibrations. But Marcus didn't turn. He merely closed his eyes for a single heartbeat, breathing in the scent of ozone that followed the opening of the outer gates. He knew who approached. He could sense them the way a child senses the presence of a protective parent looming behind in a dark alley. The way a soldier senses the approach of reinforcements when their lungs burn with exhaustion. The way the heart knows the exact shape of hope even before the mind realizes it. One of the Ursathi aides leaned down to Vrixen, voice trembling. High Counselor, sensors report mass approaching the city's northern gate, multiple units, some extremely large heat signatures. Vrixen growled, lips curling to reveal massive fangs. Deploy perimeter drones. Do not let this theatrical display breach council sanctum. Marcus turned finally, his gray eyes locking onto the Ursathi warlords. There was no anger there, only the serene certainty of a man whose faith was no longer belief but truth witnessed. Call your drones, Marcus said quietly. They will not fire. Not unless you wish to witness exactly why Earth remains unconquered. For a moment, Vrixen hesitated as if weighing something too heavy to lift alone. Then he gestured with a massive clawed hand. The aide scurried away to relay the order. Marcus let out the faintest sigh, part relief, part anticipation as he faced the grand doors once more. Today was not the day for threats. It was not the day for violence. Today was the day the galaxy learned that predators do not follow prey. That when apex life forms kneel beside a human, they do so not in subjugation but in choice. He felt their presence reach the threshold. Each step closer brought with it sense of snow and blood and pine resin, of wet fur and predator musk and cold river stones, of the feral and the noble interwoven in a tapestry older than humanity itself. And as the massive council doors began to open, as the chamber darkened under their looming shadows, Marcus felt his lips shape a final whisper only he could hear. Welcome, my friends. The great council doors yawned open with a resonant groan, as if the metal itself strained against what approached. Cold air flooded into the chamber, tinged with scents alien to the pristine, recycled atmosphere of the council city. Snow-bitten pine, earthen musk, faint coppery tangs of blood and old battles fought beneath crescent moons. Marcus stood unmoving as shadows crossed the threshold, deepening the flickering glow of the council's floating luminaires. The first figure padded forward on silent, massive paws. She was larger than any wolf the galaxy had seen, her shoulders level with Marcus's chest, her fur a blend of storm gray, black and frost white, bristling with subtle ripples as muscle flexed beneath. Titanium barding curved seamlessly over her flanks and chest, etched with human runes for loyalty, honor and home. Strapped across her back was a compact railgun platform, dormant for now but humming faintly with potential. The chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on her. The wolf's gaze swept the assembled delegates, gold eyes calm and utterly unafraid. Behind her emerged 6 more wolves, each of them near her size, their movements fluid, disciplined, purposeful. They spread out into a loose semicircle behind Marcus, tails raised, ears flicking, breathing slow and measured. A murmur rippled among the delegates. One of the Solarian aides whispered to her superior, They hold formation like trained commandos." Before her superior could hush her, the great wolf stepped aside, and the next arrivals entered the chamber. Snow leopards, their coats a ghostly white marked with black rosettes like fragments of night sky, slunk forward on silent feet. Each wore a nanostealth harness whose adaptive light-bending skin flickered and rippled with microbursts of refracted surroundings, rendering them almost invisible with every step. Their eyes glowed faintly teal in the dim council hall, unblinking, unhurried, assessing each alien life form with the lazy confidence of creatures who had never feared anything except extinction itself. 2 of them paused near the Galactic crystalline delegates. The tallest crystal-born shifted uneasily under their gaze, refracting rainbow light in sudden staccato flares of distress. One snow leopard yawned silently, bearing serrated fangs designed to sever vertebrae with a single bite, before licking her lips in a gesture that was neither aggression nor dismissal. Merely acknowledgement. Marcus felt a flicker of pride under his breastbone as the Kodiak bears approached. They lumbered forward with earth-shaking gravity, each step thudding softly against the stone floor. Their fur was thick, burnished copper and dark brown, scarred in places from old battles. Across their shoulders and down their spines, heavy pulse weapon platforms rested on armored harnesses, power cables coiling into cybernetic implants along their muscular limbs. The bears paused to flank the wolves, creating a formation of devastating synergy, speed, stealth, and overwhelming force arrayed under human command. A final presence entered behind them. Delegates leaned forward, eyes wide, scent glands and bioelectrical sensory patches flaring with instinctive panic. A polar bear, nearly 12 feet tall on all fours, her fur a pure white that seemed to glow under the chamber's illumination. Twin plasma cannons were mounted on either side of her ribcage, their cooling vents hissing softly. Her blue eyes, ancient and unreadable, fixed on Marcus with a single blink before sweeping the chamber with the impassive stare of a sovereign ruler. For a long moment, silence reigned. Marcus stood among them, feeling the warmth radiating from wolf and leopard bodies, the deep rumbling breaths of bears filling the stillness with a living thunder. Counselor Vrixen's ears twitched backward, his massive bulk leaning away despite himself. This is an invasion force," he snarled, voice low. "You dare breach our sanctum with armed beasts?" Marcus did not smile. There was no humor in his expression, only the quiet certainty of a man standing precisely where destiny intended him to stand. "No," he said softly, "this is not an invasion. This is the alliance you have mocked for decades, standing before you in peace. They are not here to conquer. They are here to be recognized." The great wolf stepped forward until she stood beside Marcus, her head held level with his shoulder. Small filaments extended from the collar at her throat, interfacing with his calm implant. A melodic, resonant voice, feminine and deep, echoed through the chamber's translators. "I am Vela, matriarch of the High Northern Dire Wolves," she said. "We come by choice. We stand by our general because he stands by us." A tremor ran through the delegates. Some reached instinctively for ceremonial weapons. Others flared bioluminescent warning patterns across scaled foreheads. Vela's eyes flickered gold to each in turn, unblinking. The room fell silent again. The snow leopards moved next, drifting forward like shadows made flesh. One approached the crystalline Alaxic delegate who had flinched before. She sat before him, curling her thick tail around her forepaws. A small synth voice emanated from her collar, softer than Vela's but laced with cold amusement. "Your kind sees light fractals. My kind sees the microshifts of your core vibrations. We know your fear scent. We know your resolve scent. You are right to fear us. But today you do not need to." The leopard rose again, flicking her tail as she retreated to formation. Marcus watched them, then turned to the council. His eyes swept across ranks of species older than humanity, older than mammalian emergence itself. Many of them looked upon predators and saw only what they had always seen: teeth, claws, hunger. But a few saw something more. A few leaned forward with narrowed eyes and whispering hearts, seeing beyond the visible. Seeing the meaning of unity beyond species. "You see weapons," Marcus said quietly, "but I see guardians. You see beasts, but I see allies. They chose to stand by humanity when we first reached beyond our moon. They stood by our rangers in the northern forests, by our mountaineers in the Himalayas, by our researchers in the polar night. When our soldiers bled out in cold fields, it was their warmth that kept them alive until rescue came. When our children were lost to storms, it was their howls that led us to them. They have never been tools. They have always been us. The polar bear shifted her weight, her massive head turning to regard Counselor Vrixen directly. Her voice emerged as a low rumble that shook dust from the ceiling arches, processed through a deep bass translator that seemed to vibrate bone itself. Counselor of the Ursathi, she said, you name us vermin. You name us lesser. But I tell you this, your people learned to stand by each other in order to survive your world's dark winters. We did the same. We learned to stand by humanity to survive the dying of the ice. We did not kneel to them. We stood with them. That is what you fear beneath all your words, that there exists a bond deeper than language or law. Vrixen's massive paws flexed against the marble floor, claws screeching faintly. His nostrils flared, and the thick fur around his neck rose with instinctive aggression. But he said nothing. Marcus let the silence linger, let it sink into the bones of every delegate present. He felt their fear, yes, but also something else beginning to stir beneath it. Respect. Not for him. For the creatures that stood at his side, tails raised, heads high, weapons silent, fangs sheathed, yet with eyes that burned with self-aware intelligence and quiet, abiding dignity. Finally Marcus spoke again, his voice steady and soft. This is my final petition. Under Council Law Article 773 subsection 12, I present to you the Predator Alliance of Earth, sovereign, aware, tactical partners in our planetary defense and exploration efforts. They are not tools. They are not pets. They are not extensions of human will. They are nations bonded to ours through ancient pacts written not in words, but in shared blood, shared hunts, shared survival. He looked at each delegate in turn, letting the gravity of his words settle into their minds like silt drifting to lakebed stone. You have mocked them as vermin. You have mocked me as their keeper. But today you see them as they truly are. And before this day ends, you will decide whether you continue mocking the future, or stand beside it. For a heartbeat, the council chamber seemed to hold its breath. The predators behind him shifted their weight, forming a silent ring of fur, muscle, metal, and unbreakable loyalty around the solitary human figure at their center. Outside the chamber's great windows, the silver dropships hovered in silent vigil above the city spires, casting long shadows across the crystalline streets. The alien citizens below gathered in crowds, looking up in awe and terror at the vast living army descending from Earth's orbit. And within the silent, echoing halls of galactic power, the fate of an entire alliance trembled in the balance, as one man and the predators of his world waited for judgment. The chamber doors closed behind the Predator Alliance with a deep metallic resonance that vibrated through the bones of every being present. Marcus stood silent at the center of the formation, the flickering council lights reflecting off the titanium barding of the dire wolves and the matte nanoharnesses of the snow leopards. Behind them, the bears loomed like sentient fortresses, each breath rising in misty clouds beneath the dome's cold filtration currents. Counselor Vrixen cleared his throat, a sound like gravel grinding under tectonic strain. His eyes darted to his advisors before focusing back on Marcus with forced composure. You come with these creatures, and demand we accept them as equal. Yet words prove nothing. Stories prove nothing. Council decrees are not granted on pity or poetry. Marcus raised a brow slightly. Then what would convince you, Counselor? A faint ripple of surprise crossed Vrixen's features at the general's even tone. Proof of sapience, he growled. Proof of coordination beyond instinct. Proof of cognitive reasoning, tactical creativity, the ability to assess threats and develop counters in real time. Anything less remains animal mimicry, as your species once believed the great apes to be like you. Marcus did not react outwardly, though memory burned behind his eyes of ancient zoos and sterile cages. Instead, he gestured towards the bears with a single fluid motion. Very well, he said softly. We will demonstrate. Vrixen narrowed his gaze suspiciously. Demonstrate? Marcus turned his head just enough to look at the wolf matriarch. Vela. Her golden eyes flickered as she stepped forward. We are ready, she said, her voice echoing from the translator filament attached to her collar. The low thrum of the railgun platform across her back vibrated faintly through the chamber floor. The snow leopards shifted, muscles rippling beneath their stealth harnesses, tails flicking with coiled anticipation. The bears rose taller, pulse weapons on their armored harnesses activating with low-energy whines. A sudden flurry of movement erupted from the council's upper tier as dozens of defensive drones detached from ceiling hatches. They hovered down in formation, sleek silver spheres bristling with pulse rifles, shock cannons, and micromissile pods, fanning out to encircle Marcus and his predators in overlapping tactical arcs. One of Vrixen's aides barked an order, and the drones aligned with mechanical precision, targeting algorithms flickering across their outer plating. Combat simulation initiated. Lethality thresholds reduced to non-fatal impact force. Commence demonstration upon confirmation. Marcus gave a single nod. The chamber lights dimmed, shifting into tactical exercise illumination. A cold, blue-toned glow casting deep shadows that seemed to fuse the predators with the marble floor. For a fraction of a heartbeat, everything stilled, then Marcus whispered, "Show them who you are." The dire wolves moved first. 4 of them lunged forward in perfect unison, scattering left and right, claws clicking softly against the polished stone. Railguns activated with brief bursts of magnetic hum, sending non-lethal tungsten slugs into 2 drones at mid-range. Sparks burst into radiant sprays as the drones crumpled to the ground, their thrusters fizzling out with echoing whines. Simultaneously, the snow leopards disappeared. Their stealth harnesses flickered as refracted light warped around them, reducing them to vague shifting blurs. In near-total silence, they bounded upward in perfect arcs, claws extended, and crashed into 3 drones from above. Shattered metal and sizzling circuits cascaded down like deadly rain. The leopards landed in unison, their tails lashing behind them as they vanished again into flickering shadows. The bears lumbered forward, their pulse weapons activating with chest-vibrating booms. Blinding flashes erupted from their harness platforms, shockwaves rippling outward as targeted concussive pulses hammered drone formations apart. Their massive paws moved with deceptive speed, swatting 2 drones each from the sky as if brushing away insects. A chorus of gasps rose from the council tiers as the snow leopards reappeared mid-air in blurred streaks, tearing drones apart with claws reinforced by carbon-titanium microfilaments. Sparks sprayed across the chamber in searing arcs, illuminating their rosette coats in flickering brilliance before they vanished again, reappearing meters away with flawless balance and lethal grace. The dire wolves pressed forward in flanking maneuvers, 2 remaining close to Marcus in defensive posture while others circled wide, driving drones inward towards the bears' frontal fire arcs. The wolves' railguns pivoted and fired, silent and precise, knocking drones out of the air without overkill. Each shot was measured, purposeful, a testament to discipline born not of training alone but of intent. 1 drone broke formation and targeted Marcus directly. Before any bear or wolf could react, Vela lunged sideways with impossible speed, her armored flank colliding with Marcus and pivoting him away just as a crackling stun pulse burst through the space his head had occupied a second before. Her railgun turret snapped up with a rising harmonic whine, and in a single silent flash the drone disintegrated mid-air. Marcus blinked, steadying himself against her bristled fur. "Thank you," he murmured. Her golden eyes flickered with the barest hint of amusement. "Always." Above them, 3 drones ascended out of the immediate chaos to deploy micromissile pods. As the pods unfolded with whirring clicks, the polar bear rose onto her hind legs, towering above the entire melee. Her plasma cannons activated with twin surges of ultraviolet brilliance, each shot connecting with a drone and reducing it to molten shrapnel that fell harmlessly into her outstretched paws. The 3rd drone fired its missile cluster. The polar bear swung her arm upward, her claws slicing through the incoming projectiles mid-flight, scattering glowing fragments harmlessly across the marble floor. Smoke and ozone filled the air, mingling with the scent of predator musk and scorched circuitry. Within 2 minutes, every drone lay inert on the chamber floor, some shattered into heaps of metal, others flickering with dying sparks. The predators reassembled into formation around Marcus without a single command. Bears took their positions at the rear, pulse weapons smoking faintly. Snow leopards slinked back to the flanks, tails curling in slow, sinuous arcs. The dire wolves gathered in front, forming a silent wall of bristling fur and titanium, their railguns pointed low in passive posture. Marcus exhaled softly, his breath misting in the chilled air. He looked up to see Counselor Vrixen staring down at the scene, ears pinned back, jaws working silently as he struggled to process the sheer tactical precision displayed before him. Finally, Marcus spoke into the silence, his voice quiet yet carrying clearly to every corner of the vast chamber. "This is not instinct. This is not mimicry. This is what happens when you grant loyalty to those who earn it. When you give freedom to those born for command. They are not extensions of human will. They are human will reflected in different eyes." Vela turned her head, her muzzle lifting slightly as she surveyed the stunned delegates. Her voice emerged calm and low through the translator. Do you understand now? We do not fight because he commands us. We fight because we choose to stand with him. Because he stands with us. The Galactic crystalline delegate flickered with muted rainbow flares, a sign of cautious respect in his species. General Marcus, he said, his mandibles clicking softly, your demonstration exceeds council tactical standards for sapient autonomy assessment. Marcus inclined his head in acknowledgement. That was the purpose. For a long moment, the council chamber remained silent except for the faint whir of cooling drone wreckage and the quiet breathing of the Predator Alliance. Finally, Vrixen leaned forward, placing his massive paws against the marble balustrade before him. His gaze flickered between the dire wolves, the leopards, the bears, and the general who stood silent among them. This changes everything, he rumbled. You realize that? Marcus nodded once. It does. But it changes nothing about who they already were. Vrixen bared his fangs slightly, not in threat, but in the Ursathi equivalent of grudging respect. Perhaps there is merit to your petition after all. Marcus's chest tightened with quiet relief, though he kept his expression composed. I await the council's decision. Vela stepped forward, her massive paw pressing lightly against Marcus's boot in a gesture of both solidarity and silent reassurance. The snow leopards sat tall, heads high, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. The bears shifted their weight with quiet earth-shaking thuds, calm and unafraid. The polar bear settled onto her haunches with deliberate finality, her plasma cannons folding back into standby mode as her deep blue eyes fixed on the assembled council with a gaze that seemed to peer through time itself. In that moment, the Galactic Council saw not beasts, not tools, not living weapons. They saw nations. They saw allies. They saw an unbreakable truth rising from a death world that refused to surrender to any force, any extinction, any cosmic indifference. And as the quiet settled once more into the echoing chamber, a question lingered unspoken among every mind present. If this was merely a demonstration, what would it look like when Earth's predators and humans chose to truly go to war as one? The chamber lights brightened slowly, illuminating the silent aftermath of the demonstration. Sparks died to smoldering embers, curling threads of smoke rose in lazy spirals above shattered drone husks, and the predator formation remained unmoving around Marcus Hale. Within the vast dome of the council, time felt suspended between two futures, the one humanity had been forced to accept, and the one now clawing its way into reality. Councillor Vrixen leaned forward on the balustrade, his massive Ursathi frame casting a hulking shadow across the polished floor. The faint tremble in his paws betrayed the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. His black eyes flicked from Marcus to Vela and back again, as if recalculating an equation whose variables refused to remain constant. At his side, an aide whispered urgently, but Vrixen raised a clawed hand for silence. He studied Marcus for several heartbeats, searching his expression for arrogance or malice, for conquest hidden behind polite diplomacy. He found only resolve, carved deep by years of quiet sacrifice. Finally Vrixen spoke, his voice low and thick with reluctant awe. Human General, you speak of alliances as if they are forged from words alone. Yet what I see before me are alliances wrought from blood, frost, and death. Do you believe these predators would die for you? Marcus inhaled, letting the question settle in his chest before answering. No, he said quietly. I do not believe they would die for me. I believe they would die with me. The words rippled through the chamber like the tolling of a deep iron bell. The wolf matriarch turned her head, her golden eyes locking onto Marcus with an intensity that seared away the distance between man and beast. Marcus speaks truth, Vela said, her voice carrying through the translator with a resonant certainty. We are predators. Death is not a fate we fear. But to die beside one who stands for us without fear, that is the death of kings. The snow leopards remained silent, their eyes unblinking as they regarded the council, tails flicking in slow, deliberate arcs. They needed no words to convey their stance. Their very presence was a declaration of chosen loyalty. The polar bear shifted her weight with a rumbling sigh, her blue eyes shimmering beneath the chamber's crystalline lights. You see an army, she rumbled, her voice vibrating through the marble floor, but you do not understand what an army truly is. An army is not weapons or numbers. It is shared purpose. And we share his. Councillor Vrixen straightened slowly, his massive shoulders rolling beneath his ceremonial robe. The council will deliberate your petition now, he said, though his voice carried less command than before. You and your allies will remain here until a decision is rendered. Marcus inclined his head in acknowledgement, though his eyes remained on the Ursathi leader. We will remain. The lights dimmed once more as council protocols engaged, holographic voting panels illuminating each delegate tier. Across the chamber, whispered arguments broke out. Some delegates gestured sharply, scent glands flaring with alarm. Others sat silent, eyes distant, contemplating futures that had never seemed possible before today. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the heat of Vela's flank against his leg, the near-silent breaths of the snow leopards beside him, the deep steady exhalations of the bears at his back. A subtle, tremulous calm washed over him. This was not the stillness of hope, nor the lull of exhaustion. This was the quiet certainty of a man who had already given everything he could give and now waited to see whether the universe would choose to rise or remain asleep. A sudden chime resounded through the chamber, crystalline and absolute. The voting panels flickered and died, and the overhead displays activated, projecting the results above the central dais. Petition to grant sovereign allied status to the Apex Predator Coalition of Earth. Passed. Margin, 53% in favor. The silence that followed was not one of confusion or disbelief. It was the silence of gravity reasserting itself after a sudden, violent jolt. Marcus opened his eyes slowly, feeling his breath leave his chest in a single controlled exhale. Across the room, some delegates sat rigid, unable to process the shift. Others lowered their heads in grudging respect. A few rose silently, pressing claw or tentacle to chest in their species' gesture of profound honor. Counselor Vrixen spoke into the hush, his deep voice edged with a solemn gravity that few had ever heard from him. The Council acknowledges the Predator Alliance of Earth as sovereign allied nations with all attendant rights, privileges and responsibilities under galactic law. May this new alliance bring balance and caution to the stars. Marcus inclined his head deeply. Thank you, Counselor. On behalf of Earth, and on behalf of those who stand with us. The wolf matriarch stepped forward until her muzzle nearly touched Marcus's shoulder. You have given us names in their eyes, she murmured softly, so only he could hear. For that we give you ours. She turned then to the assembled council, her golden eyes glowing with quiet triumph. Know this day, she said, her voice resonating like the distant echo of thunder rolling across frozen plains, that we did not come here as weapons. We came here as a warning. That any who threaten the heart of Earth will find not merely humans defending it, but the entire savage fury of life itself. The snow leopards rose in silent unison, vanishing for a single instant before reappearing with their tails entwined briefly, a gesture of bonded unity among their kind. The bears lowered themselves to all fours with earth-shaking finality, pulse weapons deactivating in smooth synchronized hums. The polar bear lifted her head high, her blue eyes glinting beneath the radiant lights of the chamber dome. Marcus felt a quiet pressure against his hand. He looked down to see Vela pressing her massive paw against his fingers, claws sheathed, touch warm and grounding. They will never see us as just animals again, she whispered. No, Marcus replied, his voice almost breaking under the weight of the moment. They will see you as what you are. As what you've always been. The chamber doors opened once more to reveal the grand promenade beyond. Crowds of alien citizens pressed against security barriers, their eyes wide with awe and thinly veiled fear. As Marcus stepped forward, his predators flanking him in seamless formation, an almost electric murmur rippled through the gathered masses. Outside, the sun burned low on the horizon, casting the promenade in molten gold and deep violet shadows. Dropships hovered overhead, their sleek hulls refracting dying light into razor-thin rainbows that danced across the polished streets. Marcus paused at the top of the council steps, looking out at the alien city stretching into infinity before him. For a brief moment, the roar of distant engines faded, the whispers of the crowd fell away, and all he could hear was the slow, measured breathing of the creatures beside him. He felt their presence not as subordinates, nor as subjects, nor even as allies, but as kin, as lives bound to his by something deeper than species or blood. Something older than language. Something primal and beautiful and unbreakable. Vela raised her head to the wind, her nose twitching as she tasted the alien scents with mild disinterest. Then she tilted her muzzle skyward and released a single low howl that rippled out across the city like a living force. The wolves joined her, their howls blending into a haunting chorus that made alien hearts tighten with awe and primal terror. The snow leopards flicked their tails, silent but watchful, their eyes gleaming like cold stars. The bears rumbled in deep chest thunder, adding a note of unyielding gravity to the wild, echoing symphony. Marcus felt the vibrations of their voices in his bones. He raised his eyes to the pale sky, feeling tears prick his vision despite the cold iron discipline that years of war and politics had carved into his soul. Today they had one recognition. Tomorrow they would shape what that recognition meant. Together. He stepped forward down the council steps, his boots striking the stone with steady rhythm, each impact echoing like a promise across the hushed cityscape. The predators moved with him in flawless unison, forming an honor guard no species in the galaxy would ever dare underestimate again. And as they descended into the golden light of a setting alien sun, every being watching knew without doubt that a new era had begun. An era where humanity no longer walked the stars alone. An era where Deathworld predators walked beside them, not as beasts, not as weapons, but as sovereign allies. As the last echoes of the wolf song faded into the approaching twilight, Marcus felt a single thought crystallize in his mind, solid and eternal as the stone beneath his feet. Let them fear us, he thought. Let them fear what we are together. Because together we are unstoppable.